I'm joined by Brad Wolfman Ramsey, fighting out of Shuriken Martial Arts. He's a featherweight MMA pro. Brad, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to actually come and chat to me. I'm aware that when I first called you the other day, first point of contact, you was in between sessions as well. So I'm appreciating the time.
Yeah, no worries. Absolutely.
So you've got a fight coming up in September, I believe.
Yep, I'll be fighting on the next Shuriken Fight Series card on the 23rd of September. So yeah, should be a good evening.
So what do you know about your opponent then? Do you get told in advance, or do you just get given a name, or do you do a bit of research?
Yeah, so basically our promoter just starts matchmaking and throws a few names out there. And unfortunately for me, there's not many pro featherweights in New Zealand, so I'm quite limited on options. So it's basically who's around, who's being active, and who's looking to fight. So usually all the coaches from around New Zealand will put their fighters' names forward,
Yeah.
and then we go from there.
So it's just like a sort of small pool of featherweights, and then would you ever consider maybe altering the weight or something if ever the division gets a little quiet, or would you be quite happy where you are?
Featherweight's definitely my division. My first actual pro fight was at lightweight, and I'm just too small for that weight class. And then it's a real killer for me to get down to bantamweight, which is the lower weight class.
Yeah.
So I did that a few times in my amateur career, and it's not a good time. So I'm definitely sticking with featherweight.
Well, fair enough, mate. You know what your forte is. You know what you're best at. It's just a shame that the pool's slightly smaller, like you say, especially in New Zealand. But when I was touching on the training when I called you the other day, so can you talk us through how do you actually prepare for your fights in general, like especially how long's your fight camp week and weeks leading up to it?
Yeah, so luckily for me, I'm actually a strength and conditioning coach. So that's what I do for a profession. So I do all of my own fight prep planning myself. So I have a pretty intensive strength and conditioning program that I do. So I'm always training no matter what. It's just the focus will shift depending on if I've got a fight booked or not. But usually 10 to 8 weeks out is when I start the fight specific prep. And that'll also go in conjunction with my skills training, where we start to intensify everything and start building up to a point where my conditioning and my skills that we're working on are being honed for that 3 5-minute rounds.
Yeah, crafting what you already know into whichever fight that you are going for. So is it safe to say that you don't do the old padded pimblet ballooning in between each fight sort of thing?
Or I don't know, I can get pretty big out of camp, especially around Christmas and New Year's. That kind of month is my whatever happens, and I'll deal with the consequences after. But usually I'm pretty consistent even throughout Christmas and New Year's. I'll always be training. I'll always try and get something in during the day, at least one training session, so the rebound isn't as bad.
It's got to be a good mindset to have, mate. It's Christmas every day for me, myself personally, to be honest. So, yeah, that's good. So, the actual training itself, because you're 2-0 as a professional in MMA, did it alter at all your training when you turned pro? Like, is there a sort of epiphany moment of right, I'm going to vamp this up or anything like that?
It's more just around the times for my specific strength and conditioning protocols, and then in the skills training it's the times of the rounds. So obviously going from amateur to professional, we go from 3 3-minute rounds to 3 5-minute rounds, and that extra 2 minutes is a long time to be punched in the face going from amateur to pro. So it's making sure that you've got the conditioning ready for that extra 2 minutes.
It's got to be nice though, like you were saying, that you do something if you're a strength and conditioning coach anyway, to stay to stay in shape, what I would consider very much in shape. But then obviously, like you said, to hone it round in the weeks leading up to a fight, to actually just dot the I's and cross the T's sort of thing for the specific fighter. And which leads me on to the next question. Now I'm dubious. I'm not asking any details just in case you've got some sort of plan. But do you alter your approach? I know you said the pool's rather small, but if you was to get a good grappler, do you alter the approach of training sort of thing? Again, I don't want any specific details with this this upcoming fight, just in
no,
case.
no worries. Yeah, you'll always alter it a bit depending on your opponent. Like if you can get some good film on them to see what they're good at, how they've done in their previous fights, and how they've won, you can probably, especially in New Zealand, the pool is pretty small, so kind of everybody knows everybody. So yeah, but I'm more as cliche as it sounds, I'm more focused on my skills and what I want to do in the fight and specific things. Me and my coaches will watch film and we'll look at tendencies and try and find little key areas where we think we can capitalize or things that we can build upon in the fight. But again, it's more about making sure I'm the best version of me going into the cage and not really focusing too much on what the opponent's going to do.
Yeah, it makes sense though as well, because I can imagine if, you know, if someone was to come in just with the eye dead on what their opponent's going to do, and then actually, you know, whether there's no offense or if it's heavily defense, which can work obviously.
Yeah.
But you know, like, yeah, I admire that. Yeah, it's got to be given away.
It can backfire greatly. Again, having a pretty extensive amateur background, I have gone into fights thinking, okay, he's going to do this, so I'm going to do that, and then when it doesn't happen, you kind of like a deer in the headlights, kind of stuck, saying, oh well, he's not doing what I thought he was going to do.
Yeah.
What do I do now?
If you anticipated, you know, a heavy striking match or something like that, and they're coming in, and before you know it, you're in the guard and all that, you know, that kind of thing. I can imagine just to throw, you know, caution to the wind with it. So you have 2 pro fights.
Yeah.
They both come via TKO, both your wins in the second round. Does that, to you, add any sort of pressure, like, to finish the fight? I mean, ideally, you know, you don't want a 3-round war where you scrape a split decision win, but does it add any pressure to you to actually finish the fight and get it out of there?
Well, always want the quickest finish that you can get, because you don't get paid for overtime in there, and if you can get out without any injuries and get on to the next fight, the sooner the better. Not really, because I always have a high standard of pressure for myself anyway. I'm not really bothered too much about the outcome of the fight, as long as I showcase my skills and what I've been working on. So more focused on me actually performing and doing what I know that I'm capable of. That's more of my focus going into it. And yeah, it's at the end of the day, it's a fight, and there's the amount of pressure that's on you already is already there. So
yeah, it does make perfect sense. Yeah, just you know, you've got to do what you're going to do to get the win. Ideally, like you say, you want a quick day in the office, but maybe sometimes it doesn't go that way. But you know, here's hoping, mate. So I was looking back at your other backgrounds as well. You've got a very impressive kickboxing background. Like, was that way before, and then you just decided to make the change in the transition to MMA, or what happened? Did you just have a switch or something?
No, well, when I started my MMA training, it was more just taking whatever opportunities came up to stay active and get as much experience as possible. So we do a lot of grassroots shows, and a lot of that time that's either kickboxing, boxing, or MMA. So it was just taking whatever I can getting ring experience. I do come from a traditional martial arts background, so karate and taekwondo. So I've always been a little bit more towards the striking. So that kind of helped me in those kickboxing fights. But as soon as I started MMA training and had my very first fight was MMA. So it's kind of always been my main focus. And then I've just taken kickboxing fights and just to stay active, really.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I mean, you're quite happy in the MMA realm right now, though, yeah? Yeah,
it's unfortunately, as much as I love kickboxing, it just doesn't seem to have the draw. The opportunities aren't there as much as MMA. I mean, MMA is pretty much the biggest kind of growing sport in the world at the moment.
I mean, yeah, I'm just gonna say, like, obviously, if just from a fan's perspective, it seems like it's everywhere now. You know, every bar and all. You remember back in the day, if you was an MMA fan, you walk past a bar, there's no posters for it showing that it's being signed. But right now, you know, people are the draw. Everyone seems to be talking about it. And you know, even if someone doesn't actively watch, everyone likes to watch the big ones, though, don't they? You know,
exactly.
Games, but still. So talk me through your previous accolades. You know, like your kickboxing championships and medals and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I've won a few Waco kickboxing titles, a WKA kickboxing title as well. Yeah, the first ever title I won was a kickboxing title. Yeah, and I've got 2 amateur MMA championships as well, one at featherweight, one at bantamweight, in the same promotion that I'm fighting in at the moment. So yeah, I was the amateur champion of that, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Just the kickboxing ones and the 2 MMA ones. So yeah, and they were all amateur fights as well, so they're all amateur championships.
Perfect. Yeah, you've got there's quite a bit of backlog and accolades there, though, to to comfort your craft sort of thing, isn't there? There's quite a lot of experience there. So
Yeah.
you're, what is it, 5 weeks out now? If you fight, you're a good few weeks out of the fight.
5 weeks, yeah. Training's just starting to intensify and really starting to build up before we start tapering off for fight week.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, Brad, I'm very appreciative of your time. Thanks very much for this, and best of luck for September, and maybe we can talk again in the future.